Hey, welcome to episode number 58 of the Debt Free Dad podcast. Listen, if you want to successfully get out of debt and reach financial freedom, building an emergency fund is going to be one of the keys to your success. And today we're going to be sharing some ideas to help you build your emergency fund super fast. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Debt Free Dad podcast, where we're helping normal, everyday people learn how to save money and kick debt so they can live a happier and stress-free life. Now here's your host, Debt Free Dad, Brad Nelson.
Hey, how's everyone doing today? You can find me on Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, or Instagram. Just search Brad Nelson, Debt Free Dad, and welcome to today's show. So guys, today we're talking about one of my favorite topics. Well, maybe favorite two topics. Saving, but also saving up for an emergency fund. And maybe you guys could share a little bit, like how, you guys have obviously been on both sides of the fence. You've been on the living to paycheck side, and now you've been on the side of, financial freedom, debt-free, outside of your mortgages. And obviously emergency fund played a big role in that. So can you talk a little bit about what that's done for you guys, and maybe not even necessarily just as you got started, but even today and based on where you're at?
The emergency fund for us was, it really wasn't until we actually had one that we made any real progress on getting out of debt. I think when we started, the initial feeling of wanting to get out of debt was, let's hurry off and pay off debt. And there was this idea of an emergency fund, but it was like, whatever. I don't need an emergency fund. Well, guess what? Stuff's going to happen. Like when we talk about saving for emergency fund, it's because you are going to need it at some point. And the old way was emergencies would happen. And guess what I do? We'd go charge it. And then guess what I'd say? See, this stuff doesn't work because I just have to charge it back up. And so that was the excuse to stay in debt, because no matter what we did, we'd always be charging the emergencies back. It wasn't until we created the emergency fund and would use cash for emergencies that it started to we started then really make progress. Like, oh, I don't have to keep charging things. Oh, if we save for these things that happen and the garage door breaks, I can just pay cash for that and not charge it. And then we really started to make progress. And that's still today. To this day, we have an emergency fund. Stuff happens. Last year, our water heater broke. We had multiple things that happened. We paid cash for all of that, not worrying about what ifs anymore, because we just have the money to do it.
Gosh, we used our emergency fund the first month.
Wait, the first month of owning your house, or the first month you started?
Oh, no. Then when we started paying off debt and you were like, you got to have an emergency fund. You got to build this up really fast. And I was like, all right, sure. I'll do what he says.
It's funny. I think I still have your original celebration post of when you guys built because you guys did it in 30 days.
Yeah, we did it within the 30 days. We just did it really quickly. I'm not even sure how that came about, whether it was I don't know. But we did it. And then my dog got sick, and I was like, normally I would have either been calling for help from somebody or putting it on a credit card if I had the balance, if it wasn't maxed out. and that's where it really hit home. And I'm glad the emergency happened when it did, because I probably may have dipped into it for other things had it not happened and realized, oh shoot, I really do need this thing.
Yeah. It's such a game changer. And I don't think there's probably any more that I could add, because I think you guys covered it all. But Ryan, I think that's like you said, I think that's probably the biggest mistake that people make, is they skip it and they go right to paying off debt. I think it's, outside of looking at your habits and your behavior, this is another area that people just completely overlook, and they just go right to eliminating debt. And you're right. It's such a demotivator, whether you're looking for a reason that it doesn't work or it just happens and you don't have the emergency fund, you put yourself right back into debt. It just takes all the motivation away, takes all the momentum away that you were making. And that's why emergency funds are so critical. And a couple of other reasons, obviously, is that it eliminates the habit of having to use debt. I think, we've talked about that on this show. Almost every show we bring it up, is that, using debt is a habit. It's a learned habit. It is not a matter of life. Like, you don't have to have it. It's just that we've created this habit of using it. We use it for everything. We use it to make purchases. We use it to, just everything. Everything has become a payment, right? So it eliminates that habit of always going into debt, especially for those emergencies. It also helps you just create a habit of saving in general. Building up an emergency fund, saving up for an emergency fund is the first step, but savings has got to be part of your regular life if you ever want to reach any sort of financial stability or financial independence, right? I mean, like you think about things like sinking funds, where you're saving up for, say, a new set of tires as opposed to signing up for the Tire Center credit card, right? And the best way to do that is to create a habit of saving, have a sinking fund, and use your budget and put that money away every month to save up for that new set of tires. So again, very early on in the process of getting out of debt, establishing that habit of saving is super, super important. And we've talked about just recently on another show when we were talking about the 8 myths about money and debt. We talked about how, if you don't save, if it's not a substantial amount, it doesn't count. And look, really any amount counts. $5 counts, $10 counts. It's just creating the habit. That's the most important part. All right. The other thing too, guys, when it comes to your finances, I think we don't talk about this enough when it comes to saving, but if you think about it, saving is the one thing that we can control. And it's also one of the most important things that's going to help you eventually, and we don't use this word a lot here on the show, but build wealth, right? I mean, you can control how much you save and when you start saving. You have all the control. Wealth doesn't happen unless you actually start doing those things. It's not going to happen. So that's the most important thing, is that saving is going to get you to that financial goal, financial freedom, debt freedom, whatever it is that you're working towards.
Well, for us too, when we saved our first $1,000, I mean, that was probably one of the times that's the most money we ever had saved in a savings account, and we've helped other people who've said the same thing. Like, they've got this emergency fund, this for the first time in their lives, they have this $1,000 that they've done. And that was like our first really big win. We can do this. This isn't like some fairy tale that's impossible. When we got that first emergency fund set up and had it saved, that for us was the difference between success and us failing before, because we just never had it. And once we had it, it was like, that was our first, then it really kind of started the next success to happen.
So guys, let's talk a little bit about why saving is so hard, because it is. I mean, here in the United States, the saving statistics in the United States, even when like things like COVID aren't going on, it's still not very good. Like we're not a country, we're not a good saving country. We just aren't. The percentage of saving that we do is pretty dismal. So let's talk a little bit of why it's so hard. Well, saving in general is pretty boring. Let's be real. I mean, it's not sexy, right? It really isn't. Like, you put the money in and like, okay, nothing happens, right? You don't get anything for it. It's like, I saved money. It's just, you don't get that same feeling. Whereas opposed to if you put $500 into a purchase that you really want, like, that's exciting. You're excited. You get to do something with it. It's good. But with saving, you don't necessarily get that rush, right?
They should make certificates through your bank that just send you like, you reached $5,000. Here's a certificate. That'd be fantastic. I'm just going to make my own. I love it. For us, though, savings is funny because we were at the dinner table over the holidays, and I was telling everybody, because now we're at this point now, we've bought the house, we have that goal. Now we're really going to start investing. And I made the comment that, we're going to start to save at least 40% of our income. And their jaws dropped. Like, you're going to have to stop living. That was like the response. And then we just kind of ixnayed the comment. We went on to something else because I was like, we're not getting into this tonight.
Yeah. You're talking a foreign language at that point.
Woo, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, when you think of saving, we're so conditioned to get everything now. The whole world and our economy, especially in America, is built on now. You want this dog? You can pay 12 months cash, 12 months financing on a dog. You want this tattoo? We can probably finance that. Like, I don't have to save up for anything because the whole economy of debt in America, at least, is just built around get you in here and get you out the door with this item and don't have you leave. That's the whole goal with it. So for us, I mean, that's a big reason why it's just a whole mindset shift. And especially when you're first starting out, saving, if you've been in debt and you're trying to save for something, you're just so conditioned to like, if I could save for it, why wouldn't I just do 12 months financing?
Why wait?
Same at 0%.
Yeah.
It's the same. Why waste? Why save 12 months? And it's like, but the idea of not having a payment now, I mean, that's the hard part. You just don't know until you really start getting through it, is not having that hanging over your head. Knowing that you're sitting on a couch that's paid for is a different feeling than sitting on something you're making payments for.
Absolutely. And I think, we have, I mean, let's be real. I mean, nobody goes through life and purposely, I shouldn't say no one, most people don't go through life and purposely sign up for financial stress. People have good intentions. Like you mentioned the couch. Like, I'm going to buy this couch, 6 months, free financing, and I'm going to pay it off. Everything is going to work perfect. But when's the last time life has ever worked out perfect? Never, right? There's always something that comes up. It doesn't work out perfect. And that's where this becomes an issue, because the salespeople are going to tell you it's going to work out perfect. This is what everybody's doing. And you're going to put in your mind that it's going to work out perfect. But it doesn't ever work that way. It never does. Things always come up that are going to make it more complicated. And that kind of brings us to our next point, is that, also delaying gratification is hard, because you're right. I mean, marketing has taught us not to wait. Marketing has taught us to treat yourself. Marketing has taught us to, live your best life right now with all of this stuff. Why wait, right? And when we're constantly hearing those messages, it's easy to fall into those habits. It is. I mean, you almost do it automatically. Unfortunately.
Well, and you look at it, I mean, we say over and over on this podcast, I mean, almost 8 out of 10 people are living paycheck to paycheck. So it makes it even harder when most of the people, if not all of the people you hang around, are doing the exact same thing. So when you're saying, I'm going to actually pay cash for the couch, all your other people are looking at you like you're nuts, because that's just not what you do. That's not what most people do. They finance everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, let's break down the tips, because people are probably listening to this. Hey guys, share the tips. Like, how can I build this emergency fund fast, right? Let's go. So let's talk about it. Number one, you've got to make this your number one priority. Like, if you want to get out of debt, if you want to build an emergency fund, like, it's got to be your new thing. Like, it's got to be the only thing. Like, we talk about on this show sometimes, you can still have fun. You can still have those cool purchases. You can still go on vacation while getting out of debt. You can still do all those things. But I'm here to tell you, you can't do that right now. If you do not have an emergency fund savings, this has become your number one priority first and foremost. Like, it's got to happen. So right now, it's the thing. You got to make those sacrifices. You've got to be willing to put some urgency into this to make it happen. Now, like I just mentioned with Amber, she built her emergency fund within 30 days. In fact, in Roots Personal Finance, which is our online membership site serving hundreds of people right now, that's the goal we give them. It's like, you got to get this done in 30 to 60 days. Like, I don't want you to get your emergency fund done in a year and save only $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 in the next year. I want you to do it in the next 30 to 60 days. And for a lot of people on here, you might be thinking, oh, that's impossible. I'll never be able to do that. It's amazing what begins to happen when you start putting the things together, right? I've seen so many people make it happen. It is possible. In fact, we're going to have a few resources coming up for you later in the show here today that are going to help you start looking at some of the things in your life that can help you make this thing go faster. But you got to make it a priority.
Yeah, this is where you really got to leave the excuses at the door. We're going to share some other tips coming up, but this is, I mean, it has, like you said, it's got to be a priority. And, this is where, if you're going out to eat, you're getting lunch every day. This is where you really can look at, what are you spending your money on, and where can you make cuts to really make this happen quick.
Hey, if you love planners, this is for you. But do you know why planners frustrate me? Because they only really get it half right. Now, sure, they're really good and fancy about helping you manage your time, which is really important, obviously. That's what a planner's for. But where they get it wrong is money, the second most valuable resource in our lives. Most planners don't include any financial planning. Things like, keeping track of paydays, bills, due dates, spending, yearly expenses, budgets, cash flow planning, debt elimination plans, and goal planning, right? None of that stuff. That's a real pain. And then what? Then you got to create your own in some silly binder, right? And who has time for all of that stuff? So instead, what happens? Nothing, right? A lot of people tend to ignore their finances even more, and things only get worse. Well, that all ends today because I am so excited to announce and release my brand new, totally awesome Debt Freedom Planner. This thing's awesome, by the way. Now, before you say, Brad, I've already got a planner. This is not an ordinary day planner. This is the Debt Freedom Planner, which is a companion tool that works with your day planner, and it's built to help you manage your money, pay off more debt, and melt away financial stress. And I believe this is the tool that a lot of people who want to take control of their finances have been waiting for. So head on over to therealdebtfreedad.com, click on the Debt Freedom Planner in the menu to get access to your planner today. All right, guys, we are back, and we are sharing how to build your first emergency fund fast. And seriously, if you're listening on the podcast, you just heard that commercial for our 10 money-saving ideas. Seriously, go check that out. So many great tips in there. And again, nothing that maybe going to be earth-shattering is going to change your life like tomorrow, but like if you start implementing those things slowly over the next 30 to 60 days, you're going to start to see a huge difference in your finances. But what are some other quick things that you can do and write down as you start thinking about this? Well, the number one way to do this, to build this thing, is just to sell some stuff. Seriously. Like, if you look around your house, for most people, and this doesn't work for everybody, but for most people, we have more than enough stuff laying around our house that could easily help build, and maybe even in entirety, build your entire emergency fund. Just with stuff that's around your house, in your garage, in your attic, that's stored away. Get it up on Facebook Marketplace. Have a rummage sale. Like, just start planning. Yes, it's going to take some hustle. It's going to take some work, but it is going to be worth it.
You'd be surprised what people will buy on Facebook Marketplace or anywhere. I am shocked at my mom all the time. She's like, "Oh, just give that away." I'm like, "Are you crazy? I could go sell this and make you $50." And I do it all the time for her. And she's like, "Oh." So don't just give it away. Throw it on there and see what you can get for it. Seriously, you'll build that $1,000 easy. We see it all the time at Roots.
Yeah, all the time. And in fact, Christina Tharp comes to mind. I know she listens to our show, but she is just always like, I'm friends with Christina, and she's posting everything on there. Used coffee makers and just everything. $5, $10, $15 here and there. It doesn't have to be big ticket items, but this could be one of the ways to make a big dent in building that emergency fund for sure. The other area, too, is you can start picking up some extra work. And I know that this tip right now, especially where we're at right now with COVID, might be a little bit more challenging for some, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. So I would just start getting creative. What are some extra ways that we can make money? One of the coolest things in my neighborhood, and I didn't see this when I was in an upper scale neighborhood, let's say, nicer homes and stuff. Like, I never had kids knocking on my door asking if they could rake my lawn, shovel snow, cut my grass, do any of that stuff. Like, I never see any of that stuff. But in the house in the neighborhood that I live in now, I can't tell you how many times, like when the leaves are falling, when there's snow on the ground, if my grass needs to be cut, I have kids knocking on my door all the time, right? They have this idea like, hey, I'm going to go make some money, right? And it's the same thing as adults. And I'm not saying you got to go out there and rake leaves, shovel snow, and cut people's grass, but there's so many different ways that you can make extra money. And, some of it you can do on your phone. Some of it you get a side gig. Some of it you could go out and get a part-time job. You just have to be willing to kind of maybe do some stuff that you really don't want to. But remember, it's just temporary extra work just to get your emergency fund built.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, as far as cutting grass, don't think outside the box when it comes to this, especially nowadays. There's so much different types of gig work out there. There's so many different ways now to make money that there wasn't years ago. And so don't put limits. I mean, really challenge yourself to what can you do? I mean, there's lots of people that probably have limits because of certain things, because of childcare. There's all reasons, but don't let those reasons become the reasons that you're just not willing to think outside the box, because there's lots of things you can do from home even.
Yeah, don't fall for the mistake of focusing on everything that you can't do. Spend time focusing on what you're willing to do and what you can do, and you will find resources. You will find things that you can do. Even when I look at the online world, I'm an online business, and there's so many online businesses that are looking for services. Lots of different things: virtual assistants, copywriting, even just uploading files onto social media sites. I mean, there's just so many opportunities out there. If you have some of those skills already, that you could start looking for people that you could sell those services to. There's just so many options. And the other thing too, and this is something that I usually work with and talk to with small business owners and entrepreneurs, is, when you are a small business, it's important that the majority of your time is spent on income producing activities, because it's really easy to fall in this habit when you own a business on like stuff that's not producing income, like working on paperwork and, working on just little fancy Facebook pictures and things like that, right? And those things are all fine, but those things don't necessarily create income. And it's the same thing if you're on your own and you just work at a regular job. So like when you're at home, monitor how you're using your time. Like if you're at home and you're complaining that you're broke and you don't have an emergency fund, but then at the same time you still have time for Netflix, social media, watching the football game on Sunday, you have time to go make more money. You're just not being very resourceful with how you're using that time. And that's a wake-up call. And some of you maybe listening to this are like, screw you, Brad, right? but it's the truth, right? It is the truth. If you want to make progress, you've got to look at that. If I'm not making enough in my normal job and I need to kind of push that needle further, what can I do outside of that job to make more money right now? And again, remember, I want to be very clear. This is temporary. This doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. And the more urgent you put the effort in right now, the more urgency you put into this, the less time it's actually going to take to make it happen. All right. The next big one, guys, is just all about making sacrifices. And I think for us, this is probably what helped us move the needle the most, not only when it came to building our emergency fund, but also when it came to paying off debt. Like, I was willing to sacrifice to the point of feeling pain. And that's what helped us get out of debt as fast as we did, even though looking back, it wasn't nearly as fast as what our Roots members are getting out of debt. But to me, back then, 4 to 5 years to get out of debt was pretty fast. But making those sacrifices was key for us. So cutting out things that we didn't need, things that weren't helping us get to where we wanted to go.
The reality is when you think about emergency funds, building your emergency fund, there's really, and even getting out of debt in whole, I mean, you really have two options. One is increase your income, and two is decrease your expenses. I mean, those are really the two areas you need to be looking at, because there's no magic lamp. There's nothing we can really give you that's going to just be like, hey, you cannot change anything and still get out of debt. It's going to either be increase your income so you don't have to make your sacrifices as bad, or make your sacrifice. Because I agree, we made a lot of big sacrifices to get our emergency fund, to do a lot of different things. But that was our choice. I mean, we would rather make the sacrifices than me working 80 hours a week.
Exactly. Yep. You got to decide where you're willing to feel the pain, for sure. And then last but not least, there's money right under your nose. Now, Ryan, you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but just going through your expenses, and maybe Amber, you could talk a little bit about this because you guys went through this about 4.5 years ago, but I know you specifically had said, it was amazing when we actually started paying attention. We realized that we actually had more money to actually do more of the stuff that we wanted to. We were shocked to find that out. So maybe you could share a little bit about your experience going through that.
Oh gosh, when we pulled up our bank statements, we started doing our budget. We were like, gave ourselves a pay raise. We were like, woohoo, cha-ching. We had no idea that we were spending our money on just nothing. It was nothing.
Random junk.
Random stuff, eating out, just buying something on a whim. It was crazy how much we found, which was, and then we just cut those expenses out and made it happen. And we sacrificed a little bit. We love going to concerts pre-COVID. And that was something we cut back on. We just went to less. Yep. We still went, but we went to a lot less than we normally would have. So we made those sacrifices throughout paying off our debt and building that emergency fund and everything.
Yeah. So the best way to go about this, and hopefully you discover something like Amber did, is go back and print out your bank statements and print out your credit card statements, and just get out some highlighters and spend, an hour or so and just go through those statements and look at where you're spending your money. And for most, not everybody, but for most people who do this, they are shocked to find out what they're spending on certain things. And all it takes is just making some adjustments over the next 2 months, 1 month. Maybe it takes you a little bit longer. So what? But just going through this process over the next 1, 2 to 3 months, if you can make those slight adjustments, you'll be amazed at how quickly you could build that emergency fund. Again, don't forget about that 10 saving or money saving ideas course that we mentioned in the commercial. You can find that on our website at therealdebtfreedad.com. Go ahead and click on tools and courses. And again, it's going to give you 10 ideas. It comes with a video, comes with a PDF. Like, it's going to walk you through everything. Like, go take it. It's free. It's yours. Use it. Get your emergency funds built.
Hey, what's this I see? I thought this was a party! Let's dance!
All right. That sound means it's time for the celebrations of the show. And today we're kicking it off with Sammy Shopper. She says, monthly budget is done, paid over $2,700 in debt this month alone. And check this out, guys, was also able to save $500. That is a huge month, Sammy. Good for you.
Amelia Welch putting $600 into our emergency account this month.
There you go. Amelia, perfect example. $600 in 1 month. That is awesome. Congratulations.
Judy Riley, I unsubscribed from another 75 companies' marketing emails, so I'm not tempted to spend money on things I don't need.
Yeah. Such a
This
good
is
one.
huge.
It is. That is such a big one, right? Unsubscribing from those emails, those marketing emails. Such a good habit. I love that. Christy Wright, I paid off my car 9 months early. Huge congratulations to her. And she also paid off another credit card. She has been crushing it. It's just so awesome. Good for you. Congratulations.
Claire Croft unsubscribed to unnecessary subscriptions, saving over $100. Had to dip into the emergency fund for some unforeseen events. However, already planning on how I'm going to get it back.
Awesome. Good for you. And that's, again, just a perfect example of why having that emergency fund is so important.
Joanne Rawls, in the 4 months I've been here, I've paid down $4,624 in credit cards. Also, I have emergency funds to fix my garage door springs this week.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us here today. We love your feedback, and it also helps us grow our YouTube show. So please give us a like or leave us some honest feedback on this video. And if you want the latest from the show, obviously be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe to our channel. And for the latest resources, or if you want more information on how to kick debt and financial stress, please be sure to check out the links in this video or head over to therealdebtfreedad.com. We'll see you guys on an upcoming show. Take care.